Hello guys, Yusaku here, and today we're going to be talking about some Yugioh Everything episode 16. Now, this is another episode where I think Emma's really showing how powerful she is. The way she's really beginning to come across here to me is very different than I anticipated after seeing the weekly jump preview for the episode, in that I'm really beginning to think she's puppeteering a trap for Aoi, Akira, and Yusaku all to fall into the hands of Soul Technologies, but I'll get there in a second. First, talking about the weekly jump preview, if you didn't read it, basically, they kept putting Emma and Kusanagi's names together within sentences when they were talking about removing the traps of Vrains, the data bank, and those types of things so that Yusaku could proceed through. So it very much came across to me that Emma was going to be working alongside Kusanagi, and we had also gotten kind of subtle hints that she had a high respect for Kusanagi and wanted to work with him during Yusaku's duel with Revolver. So with all that being the case, I thought this was going to be around the time where she begins to take a definitive side and maybe ends up switching over to work with Playmaker, especially considering he saved her life during their duel, and she seemed to have a good respect for him after that. So I was really thinking she was starting to turn over a new leaf. Not to mention that she has a lot of parallels to the character Mai Valentine from Duel Monsters, who she really began to turn around this time in her respective show. So it seemed like all the timing was right for Emma to start working alongside Playmaker, maybe even joining his team from time to time when it comes to doing things in Vrains or doing things within Soul's data bank. But basically, after seeing this episode, we got to see basically Emma's managed to set up all three of the potential people that Soul Tech would really be after, including the Ignis as a fourth, I guess, to be in one location within Soul's control all at once. And we've already been informed that, yes, Soul Technologies is one of her employers, so this is definitely not outside our realm of possibilities. So looking at each of those characters individually and essentially how she's managed to set them up, we'll start with Yusaku. She gave him the key to get into the data bank. She knew his main objective right now is to figure out things about 10 years ago, and she basically tells him, yeah, there's probably something in here. I will give you an access to the quote-unquote back door if you beat me in a duel. By making it so that he has to beat her in a duel to get it, it makes it seem like she's just being an honorable duelist and giving him something he wants, and in exchange she's getting the opportunity to duel him, given how he's kind of an evasive duelist, unless you have something that he's after. So with all that being the case, that comes across to Yusaku as, okay, I can trust her. She has no reason to necessarily want to help Soul Technologies. She's been around Akira a lot, and she was, she stuck to her word during the duel. When I won, I got the back door. I'm going to go ahead in. He acknowledges the fact that it could be a trap, as does Ignis, so he's not fully buying into it. But I think there's part of him that does have faith, otherwise he wouldn't just be jumping in, and he does think that there's a chance that he will find something he needs. So now Yusaku's within Soul Technologies databanks, and as Kitamura points out, okay, now you're in our playing field, you can't just do whatever you want anymore, you're playing by our rules, which sets up his whole predicament he finds himself in towards the end of this episode before Aoi saves him. Now moving on to Akira, Emma meets up with Akira in this episode and basically says, look, there's something going on with your company 10 years ago. Why don't you come with me into the data bank? I know that you could get in trouble for this, but it's okay. I set up Playmaker. He's going to act as a distraction for us, so we can just kind of slither our way in there and not be in any trouble at all. We won't worry about it. I'll find out what I want to know about 10 years ago because I'm a curious person. You'll figure out what's going on with your company so that you can do the right thing and make sure everything's okay there, and all will be okay. So now she's got two people in that data bank. Oh, and she coincidentally also tells Akira, no, I totally didn't lose that duel on purpose. To be fair, given what we saw in the duel last episode, it certainly seemed to me like Emma was trying really hard to win that duel, given how she was dodging the storm access skill with all of her might. She seemed genuinely shocked when Yusaku managed to find a way to pull it off, and she also seemed to genuinely respect him during the duel, so I think there's some honesty to what she's saying, but regardless, now she's set up two people to be within that data bank. Soul Technology is definitely after Yusaku because he has the Ignis, and also because he seems to be so powerful. I think they're concerned about what he seems to be going after in terms of information, what his motives may be, those types of things, because Soul Technologies, at the end of the day, to me at least, come across as control freaks. Then we move on to Akira. They've already expressed a lot of concern that Akira may know too much about what's going on within the company, hence why he got demoted. They didn't want him finding out any more. So now they might see this as an opportunity to, oh, you infiltrated our data bank. We can arrest you and do other things to you, and it won't affect our public image whatsoever. And the same goes for Yusaku. Yusaku. They won't have to worry about it affecting their public image too much if he's caught doing something that would probably be illegal in terms of infiltrating their databank through a back door. So there's two people that are potential issues for this big company taken out of the door. Now, how does Aoi play into this? Well, Aoi deploys some kind of a digital butterfly thing to eavesdrop on Akira and Emma's conversation. And Emma says, after Akira leaves, "Oh, I know you've been there for a while. It's okay. Do you want to know how to redeem yourself?" And basically she offers a chance for Aoi to get her way back into Vrains, to show her strength again, to aid Playmaker, those types of things, by going in and saving Yusaku, as she does at the end of this episode. But, once more, that could also be Emma luring Aoi into here. So why does Aoi matter? Well, Aoi's already shown herself to be a strong duelist. She's got popular viewpoints from all of the public. So say they manage to capture Akira, but they don't manage to capture Aoi. This is Soltec. And basically, Aoi could form a case against them, in that she's powerful as a duelist, so she could go up against them within Vrains without too much of an issue. She could put up a really strong fight there. If you do anything to Aoi, and as in Blue Angel, we've already seen how much the public absolutely obsesses over her. And if you have a strong enough public viewpoint on an issue like this, such as, her going against Soltec because they have her brother and she wants her brother back, then that public viewpoint can really begin to sway the way that the world works. And if everybody's against Soul Technologies, then they'd find themselves screwed. But if they have Aoi, because she was in the databank, which is probably illegal, they have Akira for the same reasons, they have Yusaku for the same reasons, there's nothing any of them can necessarily do. I don't think they're fully aware of Kusanagi, hence why he's not trapped in here, though if they get Yusaku, they might be able to, chain his dual disc back to where Kusanagi is, or something like that, since they've been communicating through that, I'm pretty sure. So, with that all being the case, they can basically get everybody that they've been hunting down all in one thing, and Emma also expresses a little bit of concern that Yusaku seems to be struggling with these AI duelists. Now, why is that a problem? Well, if Kitamura is the one who delivers Yusaku and she isn't, then she's not the one getting the huge paycheck for handing over everybody Soul Technologies has been after all at once. Additionally, even Yusaku, who has shown a great skill in being able to read people, has identified Emma doesn't do anything unless there's something in it for herself. So he seems to definitely think, in some way, shape, or form, by giving him this backdoor entrance, she's going to get something out of it. Now, it's perfectly possible she just thinks, okay, Playmaker can go in there, he's a really skilled duelist, he'll get the information, I'll get some information from him later just to satisfy my curiosity. I identified in an earlier review that part of me really does think that Emma's main motivation with everything that she's been doing with Soul, in these past couple of episodes, is basically just to gather information on what happened 10 years ago that seemed to really pique her interest before. But it's also very possible, given Yusaku's observation, everything I just pointed out, that she's after something far different than that. She's really just trying to capture these people, cash in. She figures maybe she continues to get on Soul Technology's good side, and then she makes a lot of money, she gets the information she wants all at once, and she can go on her merry way without needing to worry about any of these people in the immediate future again. So there's also another side to that coin, that perhaps Emma's trying to get Akira to go in, and she's just trying to go after the information herself out of curiosity. She's not setting up for some big trap for Soul. She's rather just using Yusaku as a pawn to create a distraction so she can get in there with Akira. And the one thing I will point out that definitely supports this theory is, if you notice anything within the show about Emma so far, is she does consistently return to Akira, stay in contact with him, and she continues to just speak with him, and she was even helping him some by getting him the limo to go visit Aoi and those types of things. And that just speaks to me as, I think she does feel some sense of loyalty to him in some way, shape, or form. But that could also be interpreted, particularly in this episode, once more in support of the trap, given how she did mention in her last conversation to him that she doesn't want anything to do with him now that he's lost power and he no longer has as much money as he used to, yet here she is all of a sudden returning, doing this with him. So it's just all very difficult to read at this point. I think Emma is a total shot in the dark. I'm definitely leaning towards the fact that this is a trap, because it seems way too coincidental that the three main people Soul would be after are all in one place as a result of Emma, and that she seems tied to all of them, and she is pretty greedy for the most part. Another possibility is that she's going to end up basically giving them over to Soul, then she has a sudden change of heart, she ends up breaking them out of Soul Technologies, maybe she feels some kind of guilt after Yusaku saved her life, and those types of things. it's just going to be a lot to see unravel. I think the show is doing an excellent job setting up her character and leaving us a little bit in the dark about what's going on, because it builds a lot of awesome suspense. I think the show as a whole has done that really well thus far. Moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about the duel Yusaku finds himself in here. Basically, he's up against one of the most obnoxious strategies that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ever presented, and I mean, I respect players who make good decks based around this, because they aren't exactly always easy to make, because there's not really like an archetype that's centered entirely around this for the most part, and that's a deck that basically is robbing cards from your hand so that you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. I mean, in the modern card game, that's not quite as effective as it used to be, given how there's so many effects that trigger in the graveyard, but nonetheless, it's still kind of annoying to face, so I sympathize with Yusaku in this case. He's finding himself like, well, this is annoying, I literally don't have a hand, what do I do? Thankfully, right as he's getting himself cornered, he's getting pinned by this one AI duelist, the other one comes in, he's about to be facing a 2v1 duel, Aoi comes in to save the day. Now, based off the episode summaries we've gotten before, I predicted this would most likely happen. It's going to turn into probably a 2v2 duel based on the little bit that we got towards the end of this episode of those, like, all four of them interacting. So we're going to have Aoi and Yusaku versus these two AI duelists, most likely. It's going to be absolutely awesome. As I've said before, Alexis and Jaden are the only main male protagonist and female lead to ever duel together in a tag duel before, and basically that wasn't a super plot relevant duel. It didn't have to do with the main story arc at hand. This, on the other hand, does. I also really like the line that Aoi says to the AI duelist that I'm going to be the one to defeat Playmaker, not you, because that line itself actually reminds me a lot of the types of things Kaiba used to frequently say to other duelists and to Yugi himself, that I'm the only one who's allowed to beat you. That's sort of like what she's saying to Yusaku, and if she ends up like kind of protecting him in similar ways that Kaiba used to sometimes protect Yugi, that could be a really awesome relationship to watch unfold. Either way, I think she definitely seems to have a little bit of a sense of loyalty to Playmaker. I think she does feel some gratitude towards him for saving her, and I think Yusaku is definitely beginning to find himself very attached to Aoi. Those of you who are shipping the two of them, I think this episode gave you great fodar in the sense that he was checking on her at school. He was even talking Naoki, checking the duel club, all those things just to see if she was okay. The AI eventually points out, well, maybe her brother's keeping her locked in her room, basically, because he doesn't want her to be a duelist after what happened the last time, and the AI even says that kind of makes sense. He explains how, you know, last time she was put in extreme danger. Maybe her brother does have a point in terms of her not doing that, and then the AI actually questions him, are you beginning to develop an attachment to that cutie, I think were his words, and Yusaku just kind of shrugs it off and he says, nah man, it's just that our duel was kind of unresolved, and as a duelist, it just doesn't seem good for things to end like that, given how I have a feeling that if that is indeed the case, Yusaku just feels like last time she ended up getting possessed by the Knights of Hanoi card, and therefore the duel result wasn't super legitimate, and he does want to eventually test his skills against her. The other side of that coin is, no, he's legitimately starting to develop feelings for her. She's managed to save him a few times, he's saved her a few times, there's a bit of a bond beginning to form there, and I definitely lean towards the latter in this case. I mean, especially given the fact that now Aoi's coming back to save him, I think the writers might actually be trying to write something in here between those two. I mean, Aoi is almost beginning to fill a, like, best friend, rival-ish type of role, sort of along the lines of what Shark did a little bit in Zexal right now. I don't think that's necessarily going to be how it ends up playing out in the long run, but it's definitely possible. I mean, especially given the fact that we haven't seen Go Unazuka since, like, episode 5 or so, and he was originally the one a lot of people were anticipating to be the best friend type, given how his personality was extremely reminiscent of Joey Wheeler in some ways, and a lot of people really consider Joey the best person to ever take on the role of best friend within Yu-Gi-Oh! Moving on from that, we get a little bit more about Kitamura here, and he's continuing to remind me more and more of, like, the people who used to run security in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. If you remember, like, one of the earlier episodes when right after Ushio had let Yusei go because Yusei bested him in a duel, one of his superior officers basically said, look, I get you have this duelist code crap and whatever, but your job has to come first. And that, you know, superior officer didn't seem to have any care for a duelist code type of idea and this respect that duelists have between each other. Kitamura doesn't seem to care about that either, given how he's sending multiple AIs after Yusaku, despite the fact that duels are supposed to be one-on-one. Thankfully, Aoi comes in to level the playing fields, and I'm just incredibly excited to see where all of this is going. As usual, I know I sound like a broken record with that. This show has just been really, really above my expectations so far. I think it's going to be amazing to see Yusaku and Aoi probably end up tag dueling together. The other possibility is that Aoi just holds off the AI while Yusaku progresses, given how right now he doesn't have a hand anyway, so it's hard to say how useful he'll be right away in this duel, unless he's got a lot of graveyard effects. Of course, he is the main protagonist, so anything's possible there. I also think that Emma everything about her character is really interesting right now to me because I just have no idea what she's going to end up doing. It's all just a big question mark. So that about wraps it up for my thoughts on this episode, guys. As always, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. What side do you think Emma's going to take? Do you think Aoi and Yusaku are indeed going to tag duel against these two AI duelists, or is Aoi just going to bail Yusaku out and say, you go on, I will take these two on my own? Does she feel some sort of a need to prove herself by dueling against these AI duelists? What was Aoi's motivation into going into Vrains in the first place, and what's going to happen to Akira in all of this, or any other thoughts you guys may have? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If not, constructive criticism is always welcome, and as usual, have an excellent day.
I'm the book and you're the reader. Run your finger down my spine. Turn the page so that you'll know that I'm not just some other guy. Will you paint my own expressions? Will it satisfy your words? Analyze my piece and see how